You know what's absolutely wild? There are entire American cities where the housing market can swing 20% in value, based on what happens in a completely different country. Your property value is determined by Mexican peso exchange rates and by local job growth. Federal policy changes can tank your home's worth overnight, regardless of how nice your kitchen is. Welcome to Border Town Real Estate, where normal housing market rules don't apply and chaos is just part of the lifestyle. These aren't small villages. We're talking about cities with hundreds of thousands of people. El Paso, Laredo, Yuma. Places where the housing market operates in this weird liminal space between two countries, two economies, and constant uncertainty about what federal policy will be next year. And here's the thing nobody tells you. Living near the border means your home is subject to economic forces that have nothing to do with your local market. Currency fluctuations in Mexico City, congressional decisions in D.C., trade agreements, all of it directly impacts your house value. So today we're going through 10 border towns where the housing market is in complete chaos because of forces nobody can control or predict. This is housing economics on hard mode. Let's get into it. Here's what makes border town housing markets uniquely chaotic. First, these cities have binational economies. People live on one side, work on the other, shop on one side, go to school on the other. The economy isn't purely American or purely Mexican. It's this interconnected hybrid. To currencies, to political systems, and constant cross-border movement. Housing markets get weird. Second, federal policy changes create massive uncertainty. Border wall construction, immigration, enforcement shifts, trade policies, customs procedures. All of this changes month to month, depending on who's in office. And uncertainty is poison for real estate markets. People don't buy houses when they're not sure what the area will be like in 5 years. Third, these markets attract specific buyer types. Investors looking for cheap property, cross-border families needing housing, retirees seeking low costs, federal employees stationed there temporarily. This creates strange demand patterns that don't follow normal housing cycles. Fourth, currency exchange rates matter a lot. When the peso is strong, Mexican shoppers flood American border towns spending money. When it's weak, that spending disappears, and the local economy contracts. Your home value can swing based on monetary policy in a foreign country. And fifth, security costs are real. Border proximity means higher insurance, more security infrastructure, and perception issues that affect marketability. The result is housing markets that are volatile, unpredictable, and subject to forces that have nothing to do with local fundamentals. Normal real estate advice doesn't apply here, and people who don't understand this get burned. Number 10, Nogales, Arizona. Starting with a city that's literally split by a wall with its Mexican counterpart. Home prices in Nogales range from $60,000 to $150,000 for a typical house. That's cheap, but the market is volatile as hell. Values can swing 15 to 20% based on border policy changes and peso exchange rates. Nogales has a split personality. Half the economy depends on cross-border trade and traffic. When policies tighten, economic activity drops. When peso is weak, Mexican shoppers disappear. Your home value tracks these external factors. The city is small and isolated. Beautiful desert scenery but limited growth potential. And constant uncertainty about what federal border policy will do next makes long-term planning basically impossible. Nogales is where your property value depends on politics and exchange rates you don't control. Number 9, Calexico, California. Calexico sits right on the border with Mexicali, a city 20 times its size. Home prices range from $150,000 to $300,000. Market volatility is significant. Cross-border shopping drives huge portions of the local economy. When peso weakens, retail dies and property values soften. Calexico is hot. Literally, Imperial Valley summers are brutal, and the city exists primarily as a crossing point and shopping destination for Mexicali residents. When that traffic changes, everything changes. The upside is California has strong tenant protections and some stability from state institutions. The downside is you're in the middle of the desert. with an economy that can contract rapidly based on foreign monetary policy. Calexico is where California meets Mexico, and housing markets get confused. Number 8. Brownsville, Texas. Brownsville is the southernmost tip of Texas, connected to Matamoros, Mexico. Home prices range from $80,000 to $200,000. The market is unpredictable. Heavy investor ownership, lots of rentals, and economic instability driven by border policy uncertainty and peso fluctuations. Brownsville has low cost of living and access to South Padre Island beaches nearby. But the city struggles with poverty, limited high-paying jobs, and an economy deeply tied to cross-border dynamics. Property values can swing significantly based on trade policy, immigration enforcement, and currency rates. Your house is an investment in geopolitical stability as much as real estate. Brownsville is where cheap housing meets economic chaos. Number 7. Yuma, Arizona. Yuma is agriculture, military, and border crossing. That's basically the economy. Home prices range from $150,000 to $300,000. Market experiences significant volatility. Large percentage of homes are investment properties or seasonal residences. Local ownership is lower than national average. Yuma is hot. Summer temperatures make Phoenix look mild. The city depends on agriculture, which depends on cross-border labor. When border policies tighten, agriculture struggles. When agriculture struggles, the whole local economy contracts. The military base provides some stability, but overall, Yuma's housing market is subject to federal policy whims and agricultural cycles that create unpredictable value swings. Yuma is where the heat is brutal and the housing market is unstable. Number 6. McAllen, Texas. McAllen is the Rio Grande Valley's biggest city and ground zero for border policy impacts. Home prices range from $100,000 to $300,000 depending on area. Market is heavily influenced by cross-border shopping. Mexican shoppers drive massive retail activity when peso is strong. When it weakens, the economy contracts visibly. McAllen has grown significantly and has actual city amenities, better than most border towns on this list. But property values are extremely sensitive to peso exchange rates and border crossing volumes. The city also sees significant investor activity. Properties bought as rentals or flips. Local owner occupancy rates are lower than you'd expect. This creates market instability as investors react quickly to changing conditions. McAllen is where shopping malls succeed or fail, based on Mexican currency strength. Number 5. Douglas, Arizona. Douglas is a small border town that's been struggling economically for decades. Home prices are cheap, $40,000 to $100,000 for houses. But cheap doesn't mean stable. Douglas lost its major employers years ago. The economy is weak, and property values are stagnant or declining. Douglas is quiet and rural. If you want isolation and low costs, it works. But there's no job market, limited services, and the proximity to border creates uncertainty that prevents any real estate recovery. Investors occasionally buy cheap properties, hoping for turnaround, but turnaround never comes. Douglas is stuck in a cycle of decline that border location makes worse. Because uncertainty prevents new investment, Douglas is where you can buy a house cheap and watch it stay cheap forever. Number 4. Eagle Pass, Texas. Eagle Pass is another Texas border town experiencing extreme housing market instability. Home prices range from $70,000 to $180,000. Market volatility is severe. Property values swing based on border policy, enforcement levels, and cross-border economic activity. Eagle Pass has seen significant infrastructure investment due to border security spending, but that spending creates boom-bust cycles. When federal money flows in, economy booms. When it slows, economy crashes. Your home value rides this roller coaster. The city also deals with perception issues. National news coverage of border creates stigma that affects property marketability. Whether issues are real or exaggerated, perception impacts values. Eagle Pass is where federal spending determines your property value. Number 3. Laredo, Texas. Laredo is actually a significant city. 250,000 people, major trade hub, and housing market chaos. Home prices range from $100,000 to $350,000. market experiences dramatic swings based on trade policy, peso strength, and border crossing efficiency. Laredo's economy is heavily dependent on trade, trucks crossing the border, warehousing, logistics. When NAFTA renegotiated into USMCA, Laredo's economy and housing market went through massive uncertainty. Values fluctuated wildly as businesses and investors tried to predict outcomes. The city has actual amenities and culture. It's not a struggling border town. It's a functioning city, but that functioning is entirely tied to binational trade flows that can change based on political decisions made thousands of miles away. Laredo is where trade policy is your landlord. Number 2. Del Rio, Texas. Del Rio experienced one of the most dramatic border-related events in recent years, and it hammered the housing market. Home prices range from $80,000 to $160,000. Markets saw significant drops during migration surges. Properties became harder to sell, values declined, and recovery has been slow. Del Rio is a military town primarily. Laughlin Air Force Base provides economic stability, but border events created national attention and perception problems that tanked property marketability temporarily. The city is small and isolated, limited economic diversity. When border issues dominate news cycles, people don't want to buy houses there regardless of actual safety or quality of life. Del Rio is where national news determines if your house is sellable. Number 1. El Paso, Texas. At number 1, the biggest and most complex border housing market, we have El Paso. El Paso is a major city, 680,000 people, connected to Ciudad Juarez, a city of 1.5 million. This is a genuine binational metro area, and the housing market is absolutely chaotic because of it. Home prices range from $100,000 to $400,000 depending on area. Market volatility is constant. Values swing based on peso exchange rates, border policy, security perceptions, and binational economic health. El Paso has strong military presence, Fort Bliss, which provides economic base. It's got actual culture, food scene, universities. This isn't a struggling border town. It's a real city, but property values are subject to forces that don't affect other American cities. When peso is strong, Juarez shoppers flood El Paso retail. Economy booms. Property values rise. When peso weakens, that spending disappears. Retail struggles. Property values soften. This cycle happens repeatedly and dramatically. El Paso also deals with security perception issues. Whether you personally feel safe or not, national perception of border security affects property marketability, and federal policy changes create constant uncertainty about future conditions. The city has invested heavily in downtown revitalization. Some success, but overall market remains volatile and unpredictable compared to similarly sized interior cities. El Paso is where being a real city doesn't protect you from border market chaos. So what does all this mean? First, border proximity creates unique economic vulnerabilities. These cities aren't just American markets. They're binational markets subject to policies and economic conditions into countries. That creates volatility that normal cities don't experience. Second, currency exchange rates matter more than local fundamentals in some cases. The peso-dollar relationship directly impacts consumer spending, which impacts business health, which impacts property values. Your home becomes a bet on international monetary policy. Third, federal policy uncertainty is poison for real estate. People don't buy houses when they're not sure what the area will be like in 5 years. Border policy changes every administration. That creates perpetual uncertainty that depresses values. Fourth, perception matters as much as reality. Whether border towns are actually dangerous or not, perception affects marketability. National news coverage creates stigma that impacts property values regardless of local conditions. And fifth, these markets aren't for everyone. If you understand the risks and can handle volatility, there are opportunities, cheap properties, unique cultural experiences. But if you need stability and predictable appreciation, border towns are terrible choices. So there you have it. 10 border towns where housing markets are in complete chaos because of geopolitical, economic, and policy factors nobody can control. This isn't about whether border towns are good or bad places to live. Many have vibrant cultures, good people, and unique character. This is purely about housing market dynamics and the reality that proximity to international borders creates volatility that interior cities don't experience. If you're considering buying in a border town, understand what you're getting into. Your property value will be subject to forces beyond local market fundamentals. Peso exchange rates, trade policy, immigration enforcement levels, national political rhetoric. All of it impacts your investment. Some people thrive in this environment. They understand the risks and time their purchases accordingly. Others get burned because they treat border housing like normal real estate and don't account for the chaos. For investors, border towns offer cheap entry points and potential upside if conditions stabilize. For owner-occupants seeking stable home appreciation, they're risky. For people with binational connections or who value cross-border culture, they're irreplaceable. The key is going in with eyes open. Border housing markets are volatile. They're unpredictable, and they're subject to political and economic forces that can change rapidly. So here's my question for you. Would you buy property in a border town knowing your home value could swing 20% based on foreign currency rates and federal policy? At what price point does the risk become worth it? Let me know in the comments, because this is one of the most misunderstood segments of the American housing market. And if you found this perspective on border market chaos interesting, maybe subscribe. We cover housing markets that don't make sense, economic absurdities, and the places where normal rules don't apply. Someone has to explain why border town real estate is on hard mode. Might as well be me.